Today is July 23rd. I'm going to call the Elder Care Committee to order. Right now, we do not have a quorum, but we are going to proceed and move forward. And we will take individual sponsors on the legislation that is in front of us, okay? And Mr. Feeney, you are welcome to sit at the table.
Oh, thank you.
All right, we'll start with approving the...
We can't approve anything.
Oh, okay. All right, so we're gonna miss that, right? All right, so number one.
Hi.
How are you this evening?
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Okay,
Chairwoman.
start-
Mr. Slacky could not be here tonight. He is out of town. And I appreciate you allowing us to go forward and let me represent this contract request for the nursing home to keep everything on track out there.
Okay, I'll read the first one. Authorizing an agreement with ATC Group Services to perform hazardous material monitoring and testing services at the Albany County Department of Residential Healthcare Facilities.
So this is the contract to monitor the asbestos abatement that has to go on at the nursing home construction project. This company was the lowest responsible bidder. The term of the service will be for the completion of the project, and they will handle all of the monitoring and testing required by law for the new construction and also the retrofit.
Does anybody have any questions?
What was the low bid?
Just under 200, 198,773.
And this is also a question. This would be eventually covered through the Medicaid reimbursement?
Yes, this would be part of the, and it was part of the CON. It actually was part of the latter part of the CON.
Okay, but can I have some individual sponsors for this legislation? Okay, very good. Ms. Chapman, Mr. Beston, Mr. Bogan, and myself. That's it. Thank you very much. All right, so now number two, authorizing the acceptance of grant funding from the New York State Office for the Aging and an agreement with the Albany County Department of Social Services expanding the expanded in-home services for the elderly program. Hello, Ms. Ferretti.
Hello, how are you?
Very
Good
good.
evening, everyone. Thank you for having us here this evening. So the purpose of the ISEP program is to provide eligible seniors who are not otherwise eligible for Medicaid to stay at home independently as long as possible. And that's achieved through ISEP, Expanded In-Home Services for the Elderly Program, type of programs and services that include things like non-medical in-home care, meal preparation, laundry, housekeeping, errands, shopping, and then more personal care at a different level around bathing, grooming, dressing, toileting, and transferring. So really just to help people to stay at home. The funds are received from the New York State Office for Aging, and then we contract out the service through a memorandum of understanding to our Department of Social Services, and then they contract others to provide the service.
Okay. I have a question.
Sure.
And it's in regard to the providers. Okay. Could you tell me how many providers, there are, or?
Sure. So I'm not sure I can tell you the exact number of providers, but DSS contracts out to, I think it's 4 different agencies that provide the home care services, and then there's also other services that are provided. There's personal emergency response services, which is like those personal alert things. That's a different contract that goes out under. There's also some meals that are potentially delivered under that. There's case management services. Those are provided by DSS themselves in-house. So there's a number of different providers that provide the services, the hands-on services.
Are there any other questions? I do notice that the state has 47%, the county has 53%. And it runs into the next
Correct.
fiscal year, okay,
Correct.
for state fiscal year,
Yes.
okay? And so we have anticipated dollars for the budget for next year for,
Yes, we have. Yep. That's all in our budget proposal for 2019.
and so you'll have a full calendar year as far as the county is concerned.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
All right, do I have any individual sponsors for this? Mr. Holden, Ms. Chapman, Mr. Beston, and myself. Thank you. All right, so now we'll go on to number 3.
Yep.
Authorizing an agreement with the New York State Office for the Aging regarding funding for transportation services.
Right, so these are transportation funds that come from the state as 100% state share with no match. And the grant funding provides transportation services to older adults over the age of 60 living in Albany County. This past year, from our best estimate of, because of the years not completed, but 1,890 additional trips were provided to seniors over and above what we traditionally can provide with other resources.
And our service providers are? Thank you, Mr. Signarachi.
Hello.
We now have a quorum. So now, who are our providers for this transportation?
Yep, so we have as mandated by the state, we have a single access point provider, so that's CDTA. They take care of the central kind of assessment system where people kind of access the service, and then they subcontract out to about 10 or 12 different providers, some of which are providers of ours for other services as well, who then, the seniors themselves have an option of who they want to get their ride with.
So this isn't based on anyone's income or anything like that, is it?
No, it is not. It's just the requirement is that you're over the age of 60 and that it's a vital service that you need. So rides to doctor's appointments, dialysis, shopping once a week, pharmacy trips, those kinds of things.
Is this part of the STAR program with CDTA?
STAR is one of the is one of the providers of services, yes.
Do I have any other questions from any other members?
This goes throughout those counties?
Yep, everybody in
So
the county.
somebody from Waterville, Green Island,
Yep,
phone
Yep.
call away.
yep, phone call away.
What other providers do you have other than STAR?
So Colony Senior Service Centers provides rides, Senior Services of Albany. There's the medical transport service, so if you need a certain level of medical care for transport, there's several, like I think it's Med A is one of them. There's, including, I mean, it can even include if you need a cab. There's no other way for you to get somewhere other than a cab. So CDTA makes sure that there's a service available to everybody. That's their role.
Very good. Do I have any other questions from any other members? Can I get a motion? I got a motion from Mr. Beston.
Second.
I have a second from Mr. Hogan. All those in favor? We do now have a quorum, so we will be returning back to the our previous meeting minutes and also on number 1 and 2. 1. And so let's move on to number 4 right now.
Okay, now we're gonna go to 4. Okay. All right, so number 4 is,
Authorizing the acceptance of grant funding from the New York State Office for the Aging regarding transportation for seniors and support for social daycare programs.
correct. So this is the Congregate Services for the Elderly grant that comes from the New York State Office for Aging every year. These funds we use to contract out with providers to provide social adult day services. So for people who might have an issue being alone during the day and they might have a caregiver, you know, who's working or other things, this provides a place for them to go where they can be socialized, they can, you know, be in congregate settings, they can get some support, you know, for you know, some of their activities, daily living, if they need some support there. It's, again, an opportunity for them to socialize, and it is really protective for caregivers who might need to work, that they can be in a place where they know that their family member is safe while they're away at work. In addition to that, some of this funding also provides additional funds for transportation, and the same kinds of transportation that we just talked about, the vital services, including potentially transportation to social adult day, congregate meals, etc.
And do I have any questions from the members? If not, I have a question.
Certainly.
Can you tell me how our seniors find out about these programs?
So, depending on the type of program, we have an information and assistance line that's operated by our Department of Social Services called New York Connects. which is again largely funded by the state. The money comes in, we contract it out to New York Connects, and there's a single access line that people can call. They can get a base assessment if they need it. If they need further, in-home assessment, that can be arranged as well. And then we also operate information and assistance out of our own office for, some of the basic services that don't require an assessment, but where the eligibility is only that you're over the age of 60 and a resident of the county.
So the eligibility is, they just have to be 60 or older?
For Social Adult Day, you have to meet some criteria in terms of your functioning, but as long as you meet those criteria. But for transportation and most of our services like congregate meals, those kinds of things, the only criteria is that you're 60 and you are a resident of the county.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Quick question.
Sure.
Seeing as both of these have to do with transportation for the meals getting to the seniors, is there anything that we have kind of like an oversight on the routes and or the transportation to make sure that those that are providing the services are providing them in the most timely and effective, cost-effective way?
Yeah, sure. So the routes, particularly for routes that have to do with like transporting people to all these different services, CDTA provides oversight of that to make sure that those routes are hopefully being maximized and that the right level of service is being provided. So, we don't send out the really expensive medical transport if you really just need, the bus. But they also try to do that in ways that where we can take people from congregate service initiatives, so if they're already together for something, and then transport them to another thing. So they do provide some oversight to be sure that that's happening. We also review the RFPs, we put these out to RFP every several years, and so that allows us to look at like the rates and be sure that the rates among the providers are competitive and are in keeping with our cost controls.
But it's nothing like social services where they have an RFQ that went out a few months ago regarding the oversight, monitoring it to make sure that the routes or that individuals use TransFinder or certain other things that are required.
Not typically on this level, but we do monitoring of our contractors where we look at those kinds of things. That's a part of our annual oversight, is to monitor in terms of monitoring the contracts.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Can I just ask you a question?
Sure.
What's the difference between this one and the one previous for $16,000?
So the $16,000 is an allocation that comes from the state that's just a pure 100% state like transportation fund, whereas this one it comes as a part of one of our large grants, which is the Congregate Services to the Elderly Initiative. So it's bundled in with other things and it requires a county match.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Can I get a motion? Motion by Ralph and second by Mr. Vesta. All those in favor? Okay, so number 5, authorizing an agreement with the New York State Office on the Aging regarding the Congregate Services Initiative grant.
So this is very small amount of funding that comes in, and the county matches it for 25%. It comes in from the state, and the purpose of this funding is to help to through a request for proposal process, which we really is, it's not a lot of money. But we want to be able to help our providers to provide additional opportunities for people to congregate in settings. So it might be, we've seen like in the past, where they brought people together around, some sort of cooking class, so they might, learn how to do healthier cooking. We've had people come together around art class so that they can, congregate with other people and expand their skills in art. All kinds of things that help people to be together, be less isolated socially, but obviously on a pretty small budget. So that doesn't fund huge amounts of programming, but the programming is really critical to helping people to, I think, be seen as more than just somebody that needs a service, right? But that people that really want to be engaged in their community.
Can you tell me how many congregate sites, meal sites?
How many congregate meal sites we have? I believe we right now have 5 congregate meal contracted providers, and we provide services in, I believe, 14 sites right now. So some of the providers, like Senior Services of Albany, has multiple sites in their catchment area.
When you say providers, 5 providers, what are you talking about?
Those are the people that we contract with. So we contract with 5 different entities who provide congregate meal services, and some of them provide services in multiple sites.
Okay, so is one of those places down on, off South Pearl Street? Who's cooking the meals?
So for that location, that's Senior Services of Albany.
Oh, that's Senior Services of Albany?
Yep, that's sort of their catchment area, is the city.
Okay, so, and that, you said for the city, or for the city of
They
Albany?
typically handle most of the city, yes.
Okay.
But then I also have Ravina, who's one of our contractors, who provides the meals in Townsend Park Apartments. So, yeah. That's the way it is, so.
Okay, so now with this, let me see, this, do you know how many meals are provided? Do you have an
Annually?
idea? Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'd have to go back and look, but I think it's a lot. I don't know, it's over 30,000, I think, a year.
And is everyone eligible?
Everyone who's over the age of 60.
Over 60?
Yep, and, lives in the county.
And lives where?
In Albany County, they have to be an
And
Albany
lives in
County
Albany
resident.
County.
In some cases, spouses can sometimes be eligible as well. It depends. If they're like within a certain age, I think they have to be over 55, and then they potentially are eligible if they come with the person who's over 60.
Okay, I'm just, I'm kind of like just getting something that, has there ever been a time where there were people who were not eligible, a group of people or a municipality?
I mean, I think not typically, because the way we recruit people with the understanding that they need to be over 60, and they have to, like, there's not a screening process, but an intake process, and when they register, we ask them that question, whether they're over 60. So I haven't seen a lot of fraud in this, if that's,
No, that's not what I'm talking about, but I just feel like I've heard in the past that we have taken services away from, I just can't remember the group of people or why, but anyway, okay.
So I can provide to you all like a current list of all of our providers around the community. And it actually goes out just informationally on the back of our nutrition newsletter every month as well.
Okay, that would be excellent.
Okay.
Any other questions?
So moved.
Okay. I got a motion by Mr. Sidirachi and a second by Mr. Vestin. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. All right, number 6, authorizing the acceptance of grant funding from the New York State Office for the Aging regarding the Wellness Nutrition Grant.
Okay, so the Wellness and Nutrition Program, which was formerly referred to as the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, provides home-delivered meal services to eligible seniors living in Albany County. There's a required assessment for that, so you can't just get home-delivered meals. You can't call and say, I'd like to have them. There's an assessment process. DSS does the assessment. If you meet the criteria under the assessment, which is typically that, you need in-home supports and you have difficulty for one reason or another getting to a congregate site, then you would be eligible for home-delivered meals. Some people on home-delivered meals also get case management services because they have a higher level of need that has been assessed by DSS.
All right, now, does this pay for the cost for the preparation to a particular provider?
Right, so home-delivered meals provide, and many of our congregate meals providers are also home-delivered meals providers. They, do the service in terms of creating the meals, and then they have to package them up and then deliver them. And again, there's routes that go out for that as well.
Is that Senior Services?
Senior Services of Albany is one of our home-delivered meals providers. Yes, they are.
Okay,
One of them, but we have several.
okay. And what's the other?
Peter Young, I can't remember, Peter Young Industries, I believe is what they're called. Is that right? Peter Young Industries? You guys help me out with that one.
That's one of the few I know.
Yeah, that's one of the few you know. And then Senior Projects of Ravina is another one that does home-delivered meals. I think there's one other. I'd have to go and get the list, but I can give you the listing if you would like it.
Okay. And what I would like is, yes, that list, but also a breakdown of where people are actually receiving.
Where the meals go?
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay?
Sure.
Any
can do
other
that.
questions? Can I get a motion? I have a motion from Mrs. Zagarachi. I have a second from Mr. Beston. All those in favor? We're just going to go back, and so we'll go back to number 2.
Yep.
Authorizing the acceptance of grant funding from the New York State Office for the Aging and agreement with the Albany County Department of Social Services regarding the expanded in-home services for the elderly program. We had individual sponsors. We now have a quorum, so I need a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Okay, got a motion from Mr. Beston and a second from Mr. Sigurachi. All those in favor? Thank you so much.
Thank you. I will get all that information to you.
I appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. And we're back to number 1. Authorizing an agreement with ATC Group Services to perform hazardous material monitoring and testing services at the Albany County Department of Residential Health Care Facilities. We now have a quorum, so I would like to have a motion.
Motion?
I have a motion from Mr. Beston and a second from Ms. Chapman. All those in favor, let them know by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Now we will go back to previous business. We're going to be approving the previous meeting minutes held on June 25th, 2018. Can I get a motion? I got a motion from Mr. Besson, I got a second from Ms. Chapman. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Thank you. All right. Thank you very much.